Good evening, everyone, and good evening to those joining us online as well. Welcome to this Good Friday service in remembrance of Jesus' death on the cross. This service tonight is made possible by a lot of people's help. Some have known about it for a little while, mainly me and Gail. Others have known about it for a few minutes. Thank you all for participating in this service this evening. This service tonight alternates between word and song based on some of the perspectives that 11 people in the Good Friday story could have had on that day. At the end of this service, there will be no benediction. After our final time of reflection, after the music played during it ends, and when you are ready, please leave in silence as we hold a quiet vigil for the death of Jesus. At the end of your bulletin, you will also see our service and event times for Great Sabbath and Easter Sunday. We invite you to join us again in the next 2 days. Now, at this time, let us prepare ourselves to draw nearer to the cross with our call to worship printed in your bulletin. Please stand and join me in the call to worship. Today, God makes common cause with our human suffering. We read the scriptures, sing the hymns, feel the feelings of the day Christ died. Suffering is not rational. It has no answer. But in the cross, God meets us in our suffering. From this day forward, we know that there is nowhere we can go where God is not with us. We sing together our opening hymn, O Lord, who through this holy week, number 348 in our hymnals. Please be seated. And now we begin with a series of our readings from a script entitled, What Else Could I Have Done? A Good Friday Reading.
Tonight we're going to consider the possible thoughts entertained by a number of the observers of the events leading up to the death of Jesus, and see how we can relate to them in our everyday lives. These readings are a glimpse into what's called the Passion, the story of Jesus' betrayal and death. Come and walk with the people that were with him during that time.
I am Judas from the village of Kerioth. I love the land God had given to my people. I believe Jesus of Nazareth was God's answer to Israel's prayer for release from Roman tyranny. Surely he was the Messiah foretold by our prophets. I just knew he'd be an invincible leader against the oppression of Rome. But I became impatient for him to demonstrate his leadership by marshaling Israel's warriors in battle. He seemed more interested in being present to needy peasants and blind beggars. It was maddening for me to listen to him talk about loving one's enemies when what I wanted was for him to knock heads. Why did he waste time with lepers and children?
I'm a Roman soldier. Our cohort was pretty typical, a fierce and cruel band of men. Actually, most of the stinking peasants we have to keep corralled think of us as murderers, but we don't care. It's our job and we're good at it. We're paid for obeying orders, whatever they are. That night, though, was special. We were out to nab this Jewish rabble-rouser, Jesus. We got a tip as to where he was, and we came armed to teeth. We came to capture a dangerous revolutionary.
I was there that night. My name is Peter, and we, the disciples, were in the garden with Jesus while he was praying. It's hard to express the level of fear and hatred that came over me when I saw those soldiers. I loved Jesus so much that I had to do something. I had to show my loyalty and my devotion. So I raised my sword. I meant to do so much more, but all I managed to do was cut the ear off one of the soldiers. I was desperate to protect Jesus, but resorted to exactly the kind of thing that Jesus warned us against. Jesus doesn't condone violence, and there, facing what was sure to be unimaginable cruelty, Jesus reached out and healed the soldier, one of his enemies.
I began to wonder if Jesus needed an opportunity to demonstrate his divine power. Perhaps I could arrange an opportunity that would force his hand. I conceived a plan that would give Jesus a chance to demonstrate his superiority over Caesar. I offered to lead a squad of soldiers to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus would have no choice. He would summon legions of angels to disable Caesar's soldiers. But everything fell apart before my eyes. It was inconceivable that Jesus would allow himself to be taken prisoner, but he did. I was sickened by the realization that I had betrayed God's Son to his enemies. I was desperate. I couldn't undo what I had started. I had betrayed my Lord. I had returned his love with betrayal. I didn't deserve to live. What else could I do?
This Jesus surrendered with a courage like I've never seen. There was something about him I couldn't understand. He carried no weapon, but when he came towards us, we became terrified. A troop of armed soldiers, Roman soldiers, paralyzed with fear. I was so embarrassed, but what else could I do?
After Jesus was arrested that night, he was given 6 trials, all without witnesses and all at night. They were brutal and cruel to him. Long before he even went to the cross, Jesus was humiliated and beaten. He was all alone. His disciples were nowhere to be found.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what was happening. I promised Jesus I wouldn't deny him, but that night I denied him 3 times. I bitterly wept because of it, and I was deeply sorry. But we, all of us, were so scared. We fled and didn't know what to do. We were in constant fear.
I am a chief priest of the Jews, someone with prestige and political influence. I know the rules and, until quite recently, kept the rules. After all, God made the rules. But then this Jesus of Nazareth came into my life and abruptly started to break our rules. It made me so angry and jealous. I went to get rid of him. He claimed to heal people, he helped people, and said he was the Son of Man. And his popularity kept growing. Despite our efforts to discredit him, he never defended himself or tried to get revenge. Instead, he demanded honesty in his relationships with us, and honesty was not what I was really interested in, but that voice pierced my heart. Perhaps I knew deep down that he was a man of God, but I didn't want to admit it. What else could I have done?
I'm Pontius Pilate. Personally, I had nothing against him, although he was as a troublemaker among his own people. Certainly, as a Roman ruler, I didn't care whether he lived or died. I was curious to hear him, though. He seemed to have a depth and a power about him. I must admit, I came to think of him as a man of truth. Why was he to die? I felt reluctant to let him go, but I'm not sure why. There was something so unusual about him, but I had my job to consider.
I am a very beautiful woman, am I not? Pontius Pilate is my husband, a very powerful and influential man, and I am a very important woman. Something happened to me, though that scared me to the inner depths of my being. God spoke to me about Jesus. He did that in a dream at night. And then from then on, I tried to warn my husband about Jesus. Besides that, something about his eyes bothered me. They were the kind of eyes that see right through you. I wanted my husband to leave him alone and release him. I didn't feel he was someone he should be dealing with, but what else could I do?
My wife was acting strangely. She didn't become upset often, but when it came to this Jesus character, she pleaded with me. Mind you, I was bothered by Jesus too. What was left of him? By the time he got to me, he was beaten so severely that it was hard to recognize him. I was conflicted, knowing that if I didn't have him crucified, I could lose my job. Losing face and being embarrassed in front of the people was unacceptable. What really bothered me was that this Jesus actually seemed to care about me. I didn't want to admit it, but I didn't want his death to be my responsibility. So in front of the screaming, shouting mob, I washed my hands of the situation. What else could I do?
My name is Simon of Cyrene. You probably don't know me, and I didn't really understand what the situation was. I was just a bystander in the crowd when I was pressed into service carrying the cross of Jesus to Golgotha. Who is he anyway? I was near to him, and even though he was about to face death, there was a strange peacefulness about him. I didn't have anything against him, and carrying that cross beam may have relieved some of his suffering. Look, I did all that I could do. What else could I have done?
I loved my son from the moment he was born. Let's just say he wasn't an easy child to raise, but I loved him. We had our differences, certainly, but from the very beginning of his organizing people, this was my greatest fear. Why did he have to be so different? He could have been like his brothers, lived in Galilee, and had a family. But he wanted everyone to be treated fairly. Does it make sense to say that I think he just cared too much? He loved too much. I just admit I am proud of him, and I wanted him to know I was proud of him, that I loved him. That's why I was there, to be with him one last time. It was harder than I could have imagined. I felt every wound he received. I would have done anything to have taken his place.
I'm Mary Magdalene. I was proud to be one of Jesus' disciples. It's a rare thing for a man in our world to treat a woman with such equity or equality and respect. I came to know Jesus when he healed my illness, but I discovered later he had healed more. He had healed the deepest part of who I was. It was a strange day for me when I realized how much I had come to love him. I did what I could do with my financial and moral support, but it was not enough. I now know that every moment I spent with him was a gift. Clearly, this man spoke the truth. He made me realize that I had lived my life in fear instead of love. And where there's love, there's no room for fear. Maybe that's why I had the courage to be at his feet when they executed him.
My name is Joseph of Arimathea. Look, I'm not trying to brag, but I'm a pretty big deal. Even without my membership in the Sanhedrin, I'm an important, prominent man. I'm not a terribly brave person, though. I had to gather up every ounce of courage after Jesus was executed to ask for his body. Sometimes the bodies are just left to be eaten by the birds and dogs. It's terrible. I have a large family tomb and thought Jesus should be buried with some dignity. I was so frightened. If someone had found out, I'd lose my reputation and position. I'm a wealthy man, and that was a big risk. But somehow I knew that such a holy man should not be thrown into a pit. He changed my life. He taught me the truth. Opening my family tomb was an expression of gratitude for how much he had changed my life. After all, that's the way love is. It transforms people to do things for love of truth rather than from fear. What else could I do?
I am a centurion, part of the Roman squad assigned to Golgotha that day, and I saw Jesus die. I was just doing my job. I saw so many people die, more crucifixions than I can count. But you get used to it. Besides, it's what we do. But this Jesus, this ragged bag of bones, he changed me. There was something about the way he died. Call it an inner peace or something. In spite of the pain, there was something about him. He even had the audacity to forgive the detachment carrying out his execution. Who does that? I do think he was special somehow. I wish I had known more about him. I still feel bad about participating in his death. What else could I have done?
What can I say? How can I ever make this up to him? He must know that I loved him with all my heart. What more could I have done? Am I willing to risk my life for his truth? Can I still call him my Lord? Will I be able to face others after being such a coward? What he taught us was hard enough to live out when he was right here with us. Now I have to figure out a way to live it by my own wits. I owe him that much. What else can I do?
I know I've been given a gift of love so great that I would gladly give my life for the sake of my child. Maybe there are things that I could have done differently, but I couldn't have loved him more.
I'll always wonder if there was more that I could have done. But then none of the 12 even showed their faces when he was killed. Sad how the same guys who busied themselves arguing about who would be first in the kingdom were absent that day, cowering somewhere safe during Jesus' last hours. I hope he knew when he looked at me how much I loved him. I will never leave him. I will never betray his truth. Maybe that's what love is.
We give special thanks this evening to our friend Betty Louie for being here this evening and tomorrow to lead some special music with us during worship. She'll be playing once more during our final time of silent reflection after the hymn, When I Survey, which is our closing hymn, making our silent reflection not so silent, but still very meaningful. So please stay while she's playing, after which, when you're ready, you may depart in silence. Here now is a prayer, a poem by Moravian pastor Brian Dixon called Good Friday. They call it good, this funeral of a Friday, when shadows have the final word and silence gives the benediction. Yes, we know the sun will come out, that bluebirds sing, and what happens when you wish upon a star. Tomorrow, somewhere, when. But not today, not here, not now on Good Friday. For in these shadows and in this silence, we find that God can die, taking our brightest hopes, our sweetest dreams, and great expectations with him from the cross to the grave. Just ask Nicodemus or Peter or Mary. And before we come to the empty tomb, we must find, we must feel, we must face the sting of death and the victory of the grave on Good Friday. Let us sing together.